Welcome back. All right, so my request, and I'll try to make this quick, because I don't know that I have a lot to add to what's already been said around the wrestling world since the CM Punk Brawl In situation. The sequel, of course, to Brawl Out from last year, which saw CM Punk end up on the shelf for quite some time. CM Punk is one of the biggest draws in wrestling, and I have the T-shirt because I mean, when AEW was selling CM Punk T-shirts, I thought, what a world we live in. And of course, CM Punk being rumored to be on his way to AEW, maybe going back to WWE, always attracted a lot of interest. But I'm going to say this: CM Punk is a difficult man to deal with, and he is not shy about giving his opinion on things and letting you know if he thinks you're not good at your job and calling you out to your face. And sometimes when you're in a business like wrestling, that's going to lead to physical confrontation. I think it gets overblown a bit, but I'm going to say this, and I thought I'd throw it in as a quote at the top of the board. Tony, get your house in order. Tony Khan is supposed to be the boss. It doesn't come across that way in press conferences. It doesn't come across that way when he's on Dynamite making an announcement. It reminds me of Jack Tunney back in the old WWF days, where he would be out running the show. But you think to yourself, yeah, but Jack Tunney's not really the guy in charge. We know this. It's a storyline thing. And Tony Khan doesn't have that gravitas that a boss should have. And part of how you can tell that he's not as good at the boss thing is CM Punk's still employed. And I'm saying that as a CM Punk fan. But after what happened at Brawl Out, suspension, I don't know if that was strong enough. You can't have these kinds of confrontations going on backstage. You can't have these fights taking place. And I think part of the problem is that in this latest with Jack Perry and CM Punk, everybody's saying, "Oh, well, it was Punk and Perry and Punk and the Perry stepped out." No. No. The problem in this scenario is simple. So Jack Perry wanted to do a spot, the former Jungle Boy wanted to do a spot where somebody goes through glass, right? And basically AEW wasn't a fan, and so they get CM Punk to tell Perry, no. No. Why? To me, that's where it's broken. It is not on a wrestler to tell another wrestler what they're allowed to do or not allowed to do in a match. If CM Punk is in a position where he is able to tell anybody what they're allowed to do in a match, he is no longer a wrestler. He is an agent. He is a producer. He is no longer a wrestler. The biggest issue in AEW is that in its infancy, when it was starting out, you had Cody Rhodes, you had the Elite, and they're in the wrestling ring, and they're also having at least some influence on booking decisions, which, go back to WCW, that does not end well. I'm not saying wrestlers shouldn't have creative control. I think there's a certain amount of creative control you want, or else you're going to end up with gimmicks that you don't like at all. You should have the right to refuse certain gimmicks in certain matches, absolutely. But one wrestler should not be telling another wrestler what to do backstage. So I don't care who punched first. I don't care if Jack Perry was out of line and Punk was, was choking him. None of that matters to me. To me, it's broken that this can happen. To me, it's broken that one wrestler is being put in a position to manage somebody else. Unless it's an on-screen manager situation, which is an in-character thing, you're not really managing the wrestler, usually. Sometimes it's a young wrestler and the manager's put there to keep him in line. Okay, when the matches are done, can you make sure he actually goes to the hotel room? Can you make sure he stays out of the bar tonight? That'd be great. So there are situations where that's happened in the past, where somebody's put with the younger guy just because you kind of have to have somebody there to keep an eye on him. But I really think that where this is broken is the person going to Jack Perry and saying, "You're not doing that spot," is Tony Khan. If Jack Perry does that spot, when Tony Khan said, "You are not doing that spot," he is immediately suspended. Immediately. And if you really want to Vince Russo it and come out during the match and suspend him on the air, so the people are saying, "Is this real? Is this fake?" Go for it. Punk should never have been in this position in the first place. This should never have happened. Phil, you want to call him Phil because that's his real name? You want to be clever? Sure, we'll do that. Phil. If Phil's being asked to manage these wrestlers, he's not paid enough. And I think when he says things like, I'm working with children, that's probably part of it, right? Why am I managing these guys? Why do I have to tell them what they can and can't do? Are they kids? Am I working with kids here? So I do think that Phil, CM Punk here, I do think that he has an ego. And I do think that you're going to be dealing with that when you employ him. And that's something you have to take into consideration. It's part of the reason, I think, why WWE didn't really want to bring him back that badly, right? Where, yeah, we'd bring him back, and in the back of their mind probably thinking, is it really worth the headache? Is it really worth the headache to have that many guys who don't want to work with him? Which AEW is dealing with right now. Guys don't want to work with him, right? Like, this whole thing would be great if at some point in time we were going to get Punk versus Perry. The whole brawl out would be great if we were going to get Punk tagging with FTR and going against your Super Kick Party and Adam Page. If you're going to get that 6-man match or throw Kenny Omega in there, it'll sell lots of tickets. It'll make lots of money. But the issue to me is not the guy who wears this shirt. It's not CM Punk. It's Tony Khan. And I like AEW. I think AEW's, a really, really solid company. I think their roster's fantastic. There are so many wrestlers there who are underrated. Buddy Matthews stands out as an obvious one. But there are so many guys on this roster who can go, and there's so many ladies, as I mentioned in my earlier video, that can go and could really be superstars. But you have to have your house in order. You have to have it so that you're it. You're the authority. And the buck stops there. So in WWE, you have Triple H, who I know that when Vince McMahon and his standing, it might erode some of Triple H's authority. But you have to have that backstage. You have to have somebody in management who can go up to a wrestler and say, that spot where you want to put somebody through glass, I'm saying no. I am saying no. So after the event's done, you have MJF go out. MJF has his press conference, and he talks about, we're not all going to get along. We're not all going to be friends. That's fine. I love this company. I love everybody. Kumbaya. Let's all hold hands. Let's all cuddle. Tony's right there. This was Tony's chance to come out and say, all right, so tonight there was a scuffle before CM Punk came out to face Samoa Joe. I've got this under control. I've got this handled. I am suspending both wrestlers pending an investigation by me. I'm going to take a look into this, and I'll update you guys at a later date. But that is all I have for now. They are immediately suspended, and I'm not putting up with any of this BS any longer. And this is the end of the suspensions. The next time this happens backstage, they're gone. I don't care who you are, you're gone. And if a wrestler knows that they could lose their job, they'll probably think twice before throwing a punch backstage. But that doesn't happen. Now, I don't know, the whole idea that, Jim Cornette talking about how he's a fanboy, not Cornette's a fanboy, but the Khan is, and talking a lot about Tony Khan, and he does, but he's got a point. Khan does not come across as a boss on screen, and from what we see with all this backstage drama, I don't think he comes across as a boss backstage either. The one failing for Eric Bischoff in WCW, I thought, was he was too chummy with the guys he was on screen with in the NWO. And he wasn't taking a really objective look at things. So when the tide started to turn and WWE was getting the ratings, instead of saying, okay, people don't want to see these older guys, he just, let's reboot the NWO. We can have a wolf pack, and then we'll reboot the NWO with, there'll be NWO Hall, and then we'll do another. Stop trying to recreate it. Stop it. You can't recreate the NWO. And, of course, WCW, it all fell apart. Now, with AEW, I don't think there's any danger of it falling apart. I think that with the finances and with the financial backing the company has, I think they're in good shape for years to come. And Wembley will sell out again for next year. That's going to be a really strong market for them. I think one thing we've learned is that putting all your eggs into the American basket might have been part of the problem with other companies in the past. And so AEW is willing to go global. I think they should have big shows in Tokyo. I think you should look at big locations that maybe they're passed over from WWE, or just areas that you know you're going to draw fans. So Calgary being an example in Canada. Put a big event in Calgary, you're going to sell it out. Calgary is a wrestling hotbed and has been for decades. So the company's in good shape, but I think it's kind of in spite of the way that it's managed backstage. So everybody's all, who threw the first punch? I don't give a damn who threw the first punch. I don't care if CM Punk dressed Jack Perry up like a clown, hog-tied him to a track, and ran him over with a plastic engine. Like, I don't care. And I'm talking like a train engine, you know, one of those little, like something like that. I don't care if they had a fight because they were both having a big wheel race and CM Punk cheated at the end to win. I don't care what happened. The reality is, this shouldn't have happened because Tony wasn't running things backstage. That's his job. That's his job as the boss. You're the booker, right? You're the guy, you're the booker, you're the face of the company. Don't let this crap happen. So you're in gorilla. You should be in gorilla position. As soon as you see Punk and Perry getting close to each other, you stand in between and go, boys, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. Jack, you go to your locker room. You sit down. You shut up. You do what you got to do. Punk, go out. Have a great match. We'll talk after your match is done. Where was the person to step in between them and go, you go sit down and shut up. You go to the ring and have your match. And that to me is the issue. The wrestlers should not be policing each other. The wrestlers should have no say in what anybody else is doing in a match. That makes no sense. None. Just imagine that there's a big kerfuffle in WWE because, or I'm trying to think of like Dexter Lumis wants to do something and Seth Rollins steps in and goes, you're not doing that spot tonight. In a match that Seth Rollins isn't in. We would have the same question. We'd be saying, why is Seth Rollins telling Dexter Lumis what he is or isn't allowed to do? Why is The Miz stepping in to tell another wrestler what he is or isn't allowed to do in a match? Where was Triple H? Where's your bookers? Where's your agents? Where's your producers? And that, to me, is the issue with AEW. So they have these guys in place. We know they have the agents. We know they have the management. Those guys need to step up and make sure this doesn't happen. You shouldn't have to have two separate shows just so that CM Punk can be on a show away from the Elite. You shouldn't have that. That shouldn't be one of the main reasons why you have a split roster, is because certain people don't want to work with Punk and certain people do. You should be sitting down and nipping this in the bud rather than saying, hey, we're just gonna keep things as they are. Wrestlers are still gonna be telling wrestlers what to do, and then we're just gonna suspend people for a while, where I'm guessing they're still getting paid, they're just not in the ring, which doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anything. Definitely doesn't help Perry right now. It doesn't help Punk. Punk needs to be in the ring. He's your champ. Perry needs to be in the ring. He had a recent heel turn. I think he's doing well as a heel. You have to have him in the ring. You have to have somebody policing it so this doesn't happen again. All right. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And again, if I see one more video on YouTube about who threw the first punch, I'm going to scream, because to me, that is not the issue. That's not the issue. The fact that they were able to come to blows tells me that management is crap in AEW. And that's my honest opinion, and it's too bad, because when I look at the product and I look at the rosters, I prefer AEW as a wrestling show over WWE. But at least WWE, while some of their plans are kind of dumb, at least there's plans. And we don't hear about this kind of thing happening. And I'll say this in closing. We know there's WWE wrestlers who hate each other. There always are. There's definitely backstage issues in WWE, the same as in AEW. But they have a management structure that makes sure this doesn't happen there, because that will overshadow whatever event was going on that day, and it looks bad for the company. But thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.